Hello and welcome to another Scoutcast from fantasyfootballscout.co.uk. My name is Joe.
My name's David.
Well, today, David, is a special day. So forget your birthday, forget Christmas, forget Valentine's, Easter, All Saints Day, Halloween, forget all of that. This is FPL Launch Day. It's a really exciting day. We get to see all the players that we can't afford and try and desperately find some players that we can. So on this video, this is really our initial reaction to the launch and the player list. And Dave and I will look through that list, see what's been revealed. And we'll take a look at those who've changed classification. We'll look at who's been overpriced, who's been underpriced. We'll do a bit more bargain hunting, hopefully. And then we'll have a look at some premium assets because you can't afford them all. So we're going to find out which 2 or 3 we're looking to try and get in early on. So, but before we get into the pricings, let's have a look at those that changed positions. So, David, who's changed classifications this season?
Yeah, so a lot of people were worried over the summer that Mohamed Salah might be one of the people that changed position. Obviously, on the World Cup fantasy, he was a forward along with basically every other midfielder. Thankfully, Fantasy Premier League haven't followed suit. Salah is still a midfielder. But those of you who are hoping to get Arnautovic and Zaha in your team as a midfielder going to be disappointed because they've been reclassified as forwards. I mean, the price is not too bad. They're both 7 million, so it could have been worse. I mean, I think Josh King was 7.5 last year, for example. That's similar in price to what they were last season. But of course, you're not going to get your clean sheet points. Your goals are worth less. It's a disappointing one for some. I mean, we may still be looking at them. I think West Ham are going to be better than they were last year. But of course, there's no guarantee. This is the thing. No guarantee that Arnautovic is going to play up front. Which of course is the big talking. But Zaha we're a little bit more sure of because obviously there's no new manager at Palace. Roy Hodgson seems quite keen for Zaha to play up front. Probably happen again. But obviously Pellegrini's now at West Ham and he's not David Moyes, so he may opt for something different with Arnautovic.
I mean, yeah, those are the two that I immediately noticed. I'm in two minds about it. Part of me thinks, oh no, less points for them. But it does mean their move has meant they've kept their value. I mean, arguably both of them could have been 8 million, even 8.5 if they've stayed midfielders. But one thing I do quite like is the fact that there was a real lack last season of this kind of mid-price striker. So you had a few cheap ones and they were pretty much mostly rubbish, apart from, say, Glenn Murray or Nias for a tiny week or two. And then everything was really expensive. So you couldn't really get a good, reliable third striker. But now I think Arnautovic, even on the wing or in the midfield, I think he's still worth it. Zaha, well, I think he's the kind of king of Palace, really. So he can do what he likes. So even if they get another striker in, Zaha will still be the main man, unlike Josh King, who was not the main man. So these are two players. I like it. It gives a bit of choice up front. But yeah, so yeah, swings and roundabouts, less points. But yeah, who else has changed position then?
Something I'm actually really quite happy with is the fact that Ashley Young is now a defender. I've been waiting for this for a long time because I had him once or twice last year. I'm ashamed to admit, but it actually kind of paid off. I had him when he scored his free kick against Watford. I also had him when he got a few bonus points over Christmas, just because I had a transfer that I needed to use. But of course, when they're in midfielder, they only get the 1 point for the clean sheet. So having Ashley Young 6 million as a defender, I quite like. He might not actually even be in defence this year. I mean, he may be on the wing. I mean, he might even be a World Cup winner by the time the Premier League season starts. So, I mean, we don't know he's going to play. Obviously, pre-season will tell us that. But, just having someone like him in that area is nice. We had James Milner last year switch to a defender for 6.5. So, again, it's nice that he's only 6 million. It kind of makes you ask that question a bit more. He's basically the same price as David De Gea. So, if it's a choice between those two, and we know that Young's going to play, then you go with Young, don't you? Because he's going to be on the odd set piece. He's going to have some goal threat. And, of course, he's going to get the clean sheets as well. The other one is Fabian Delph, who's not quite so exciting because, obviously, not a regular occurrence in the team. He's 5.5, so that is reflected in his price. Obviously, he played so much last year because they had lots of injuries in the full-back positions. They might not have that this season. So, again, there are two players that we need to sort of keep an eye on over the pre-season. Another player, of course, could be a World Cup winner by the time the season starts, so you never know. So they're the two that I'm most excited about. But moving out of defence, one that I was a little bit gutted by is Masuaku, who's now a midfielder. He's still the same price. He's 4.5 million. So, it could be. Some of us have had some good luck with Inui on World Cup Fantasy. 4.5 million midfielder who plays basically as a wide forward, which Masuaku did last season. Again, the thing with West Ham, new manager, you don't know where these players are going to play. But it's just worth being aware, obviously, that Masuaku not a defender anymore.
I must admit, I hadn't noticed that one, and that one does interest me because I was I initially looked at the team and I was trying to construct a team, and obviously we'll come to some of the premium heavyweights, and it was difficult to get them in. I was desperately looking for a 4.5 midfielder. So the top in terms of points last season was Stevens at Brighton, who you pretty much get, he'll turn up. You may get a goal or assist within the season, but that's it really. You might get the odd bonus, but you're not going to get much. So I was looking for a Masiaku type, as on Scoutcast last season, what we call them magic beans. So yes, who can produce a beanstalk of a score. I think initially I may put him in just as a 4.5 midfield. Hold a good spot there. Someone's else has gone another way as well. You mentioned
James Milner. That's right.
Yeah.
So back into midfield and a bit cheaper as well. So because we looked at him last year, 6.5 million for a defender like Milner, who it wasn't worth doing. I mean, again, 5.5 is a great price, I think, if he's going to play, because he's on the odd set piece, and but of course, with those new signings they've got in midfield like Fabinho and Keita, I mean, they could be the players taking his place. They're a little bit more expensive. I think we'll probably come on to those a little bit later. So it's interesting. I'm more inclined that now that he's 5.5, but of course, obviously, with him not getting the clean sheets, it sort of swings and roundabouts on Milner.
I think you mentioned it there with those new players coming in, and Milner he's a great asset for any team, I think, because he's a great squad player. He can play all over the shop, and he's reliable, turns up on time, drinks his cups of tea and his Ribena. He's a great player to have around the squad. But from a fantasy point of view, I would be avoiding. But if I get an inkling that he's starting, 5.5, once again, I couldn't really see a lot in that category, really.
Worth mentioning his teammate Firmino. I mean, we all when we saw that Firmino was a forward last season, a lot of us kind of went, oh, that's a bit of a shame. I was going to have Firmino, and now I'm probably not. And then, of course, 12 months later, here we are. He had a fantastic season. And I'm not saying Milner's going to have a season like Firmino, but sometimes when a player does change position, seemingly for the worse, that's not necessarily the end of the world, because they might still have a great season. So we'll have to sort of keeping that in mind with these positional changes.
I mean, what about as well? I mean, sorry, we haven't really prepared, but I was looking at some of the players that haven't changed position. So I've kind of sprung this on you, really. So I'm looking at Arnautovic and Zaha, essentially kind of midfielders, wingers that played up front. Well, that's Firmino as well. So there he is there. But then there's Salah as well, and there's
Mane.
Mane as well, and there's a whole bunch of other players who in other games are listed as forwards. Salah in the Sky game, for example, is listed as a forward. So what do you think about? I mean, do you think there is a case for that? For that, if Arnautovic and Zaha are forwards and Firmino is, why not Salah?
Yeah, no, it's a tricky one. I mean, I guess. Yeah, because I think my answer to that would be, if you change Salah, then you have to sort of change a few other players. But then, of course, as you've mentioned, they've changed Arnautovic and they've changed Zaha. I think maybe the key is just where people play where they play within a forward line. So a lot of people play 4-3-3 now, or they play 4-2-3-1. And those wide men are basically forwards. But of course, some of them still have defensive responsibilities. So, I think if Salah had been, so Salah's a forward for Egypt, for example, because he is literally deployed as a centre forward. Zaha was deployed as a centre forward with two strikers. Arnautovic was deployed as the one striker in front of Lanzini. So I think maybe that's the key, because of course, with Liverpool, with Firmino, that's what they were. They were 4-3-3. Firmino's a false nine, but a false nine is a striker's position, not a midfielder's position. So I think it's that central element that's the key. If they're going to play in a wider area. Zaha, of course, and Arnautovic have played as wide players, but they were shifted as to lead the line. I think maybe that's the decision-making process. I think.
Yeah, I think I was just kind of anticipating a lot of questions from the fantasy football scout community around that.
Yeah, of course.
It's been a big debate.
Yeah.
But I mean, let's have a look at some of these prices then. So I mean, my initial thoughts are always who's overpriced and who's underpriced. I mean, that's what I always look at, really, and it's the underpriced ones I really want. So, but let's have a look at the overpriced ones, really. So, is any that spring out to you and you think, oh, that's too much for them, or you think FPL have kind of over anticipated how good they might be?
I think the first one that took me by surprise was Sessegnon. Obviously, we found out earlier this week they did a few reveals. That he's a midfielder and he's 6.5. Obviously scored a lot of goals last season, so I mean I think he's potentially capable of living up to that. But at the beginning of the season, I'm probably not going to touch him because I mean, if he was a defender, I might think twice. But at the beginning of the season, 6'5" for a newly promoted player, we know he's got bags of potential. But I mean, at the moment, it is just potential.
Yeah,
so
I agree with you. I think they've listened to the hype. I mean, they're quite clever. A lot of the pricing as well isn't just about how they think they'll do well. They think how popular they might be as well. And Sessegnon would obviously be popular. And if he was 5.5 midfielder, for example, he'd probably be in everyone's team. 6.5 makes you think, and that's the aim. So I can see why they've done it, but I totally agree with you. He's unproven at this level.
Yeah, exactly.
Great at the Championship. Knockout for my team, Brighton, last season. Fantastic in the Championship. He's quite good player, but he's not a Premier League fantasy. He's not a fancy Premier League asset you would get. It was Gross who was that asset. And I just wonder whether Sessegnon will make it as well. For those that have been playing this game a long time, they will remember Ebanks Blake, who played for Wolves. Amazing season in the Championship, came up, did absolutely nothing. And so we're not sure yet whether Sessegnon's going to be an Ebanks Blake or someone a bit better. But yeah, who else?
Raheem Sterling, I think, is probably priced around what we expected. But, like 11 million, when we've also got to think about Salah at 13, Kane at 12.5, potentially, later in the summer. I know I might sound a little bit overly patriotic, but I mean, England are doing quite well in the World Cup, as everybody knows. If we go deep, then he's the kind of person who's going to miss the start of the season. Even if England don't make the final, if they beat Sweden in a couple of days' time, which is doable, then he's not going to be available. I mean, Aguero's the same price. Argentina obviously had an earlier exit, and Brazil could win the World Cup. So I mean, Aguero is probably who I might actually look to cover City with to begin with, because 11 million for a player who might not be starting game week 1, it's too much for me, I think. Yeah,
I mean, I looked at that in comparison with other City players, as you said about Aguero. Sané as well, we may mention him an underpriced potentially, but 9.5, he's having a lovely rest, and we're looking at those players that didn't get to the World Cup. He arguably will be thinking, why wasn't I there? Because Germany might have got further if he was. And also De Bruyne as well is 10 million as well. So you've got all of those assists. Once again, he might be a bit delayed back. And then Mahrez rumoured to be joining. I mean, that looks like it's going to happen. So there's more options up front, more chance of Sterling being rotated, I think. And as you said, I mean, I think England have already gone quite far. Already players are back for pre-season. So already he's not part of that early group. Exactly. And if he's got to keep, if he keeps at it with England, then him and De Bruyne as well, they might not be starting the first game week. So yeah, good shout there. Anyone else?
Well, we have to talk about Salah, I suppose, just because some people would argue that 30 million is too much. I mean, I think it's about right. I think it's what we expected. I noticed that FPL did a poll, and I think it was a case of how much do you think he's going to cost? And I think that the 4 options were 12.5, 13, 13.5, or 14. And I think people were mostly voting out hope, because I think 12.5 won that poll comfortably. If only it worked that way, if we could choose on a poll. But yeah, I mean, that's just going to ask, it completely changes the way you build your team. I mean, obviously last year, a lot of us stuck him in game week 1 because 9 million was a price worth paying for a guy that we thought, if he doesn't work out, there's a couple of Spurs midfielders we could switch to. And then, of course, obviously, eventually he became essential. But when you look at what's around him with Liverpool, I mean, I think the key really is the fact that he's 4 million or he's 3.5 million more than Mane. Mane's 9.5, so is Firmino. When you look at the involvement, the goal, obviously he scored a lot more goals than them, but they were still involved. If you can maybe capitalise on Liverpool's attack through Mane and Firmino, like, do you need Salah if he's going to eat that much of your budget? But I mean that's why we're talking about him now, because obviously I say all that, and then it will be the day before game week 1. I don't have Salah in my team, and it'll be 5 minutes of deadline, and I'll just I'll get the fear, and I want to get Salah, and just
once again that price it's that fear factor. It's by miles the top scorer, and it's actually the top scoring fantasy player of all time.
Yeah.
So 30 million doesn't surprise me at all. But I tried getting a team with him in and a respectable bunch of others, and I couldn't. I just couldn't. I was just going over budget. And I think in terms of an initial 100 million budget team, I'm going to struggle to get him in. But it's that fear factor. And his ownership is going to be absolutely huge.
Yeah, exactly. That's the key.
And Liverpool have great early fixtures as well. So going without, it's a huge gamble. It's one of those mistakes you think where when you look at your final rank at the end of the coming season, and if it's awful, you'll look back. I will look back at not getting Salah in as my crucial mistake.
Yeah.
By the same token, I could be looking at getting Salah in as the big mistake because he's not providing 30 millionths worth of points. I remember a while ago, Van Persie. He had a great season, came back at 14 million. Wow. Lots of people got him in, and he just wasn't worth 14 million. Wait and see with Salah.
I think we have to look. If we look at Kane last year, I think none of us were surprised at his price at the beginning. And the thing is, he had a great season, one of his best in a while. I mean, obviously, he didn't win the Golden Boot, but that's more because of Salah than because of him. But we were always asking that question, weren't we? I mean, that was the thing. With Salah, it was never a question because 9 to 10 million, you could get away with it if he didn't score. I mean, he did, but when you're planning things, you could get away with it. Whereas every time Kane blanked, even if he scored a hat-trick 2 weeks later, you're still going, and that's because of the money, isn't it? And that's what's going to be with Salah.
Exactly. It's like Ronaldo years ago. I mean, Ronaldo was a great player, obviously. He still is. But he was a great player as a fantasy asset because he did deliver every week. He basically only didn't deliver when he was injured. So he was absolutely ideal. There's just a couple I want to mention as well before you mention some more. It's just a couple of defenders where I think someone's got their nostalgia specs on. And it's just like looking at this and going, oh, wow, it's 7 years ago. So Leighton Baines is 5.5. I cannot see why. He should be 5 million. He may not even be on penalties. And I just think an Everton defender is a 5 million asset, tops. So I think someone's got their nostalgia specs on there. Same with Valencia and Manchester United. I don't know what someone's been drinking there, but 6.5, that's incredible. So that's far too much player. Got 146 points last season. That was great. But that was what basically clean sheets. And so De Gea is cheaper than that. So if you're thinking of getting a player, get De Gea and don't even bother with Valencia. He's 0.5 more. So he got 146 points. It's 30 less than Azpilicueta, who is the same price. So I look at Azpilicueta and his bonus potential, his assists, his goals, and Chelsea hopefully doing better next season. And I look at Valencia, I just think, sorry, Antonio, you're going nowhere near my side. But yeah, for me, there was a couple of defenders that really struck out as being overpriced. But yeah, anyone else overpriced?
I mean, one that I think is a tad overpriced is Pascal Gross. He's 7 million. Now, obviously, I mean, what he delivered last year. I understand why he's that price, but it is a hike. It's just that same question that we were just talking about earlier with Salah, but to less of an extent. With someone of that price, when they don't deliver, you start to look at the money they're worth and think I could get someone else. Season simple. I don't like to rain on Brighton's parade in front of you, but you just. You're not always sure. I mean, as a Reading fan, I know exactly what can happen in your second season in the Premier League.
No, I agree. And also, I'm looking at early fixtures, and Brighton's early fixtures aren't great. And so I wouldn't be going near a Brighton player. Well, unless they were really cheap as kind of bench fodder. But I wouldn't be going for a Brighton player thinking they're going to get me points.
Yeah.
So that would be my argument. If Brighton had great fixtures, I think 7 million might be okay. It's a tricky one. The 7 million, as we learned last season, with the likes of Willian was 7 million. There's quite a few 7 million players, and it's a tricky price point, really. It almost feels like they're about to drop. And I think Gross, he could end up being 6-8 within 2 or 3 weeks, maybe.
Yeah, he'll get high ownership at the beginning, won't he? Because, of course, people will look at what he did last season, and I think that's worth going for. I mean, Fabregas, I think, was another one last year, 7 million, but he had a good season. Yeah, it's a tricky one because it's in a way it's almost between brackets. I think that's the tricky thing, isn't it? Like it's two ways of looking at it. Are they an overpriced mid-range or are they an underpriced mid-range? It's tricky. You
can often find a 5 or a 5.5 midfielder who will match them or even beat their scoring. And once you do, they're the players that go up in price. And it's these 7 million ones that go down. So the 7 million ones have got to really hit the ground running. They've got to be performing like an 8 or 8.5 million midfielder. Exactly. Otherwise, they can have some price drops there. Yeah.
I think the only other one just worth mentioning. I think again, I wouldn't say I don't want to say overpriced because it's not unexpected and it's not huge. But the Spurs defense, basically everybody's 6 million. But the reason why that I'm just put off by that is the rotation. So last year, it was I mean, I stayed away from their fullbacks eventually. I was on Ben Davies for a long time at the beginning of the season when he had a clear run because Danny Rose wasn't playing. I understand why they've gone up because all of them have, they've got great attacking potential. I think they combined for something like 25 goal involvements between them. The two rotating, fullbacks as two in each position, and the three centre backs. So I get why they're worth that money, but they're not always going to play every week. I mean, even Ben Davies and Trippier, who I think were the clear leaders in, compared to Aurier and Rose. Poch likes to rotate them, doesn't he? And we've said it before. Kieran Trippier is another one who could come back late. Vertonghen and Alderweireld could come back late. Davinson Sanchez is already home, as we know. But yeah, so I mean, again, that's just, I'm not going to pay $6 million for a Spurs defender at the beginning of the season if they're still not in pre-season training yet.
I mean, we've seen that before with Pochettino. What he does, and he did the same thing at Southampton as well. There's always rotation with fullbacks because his style of play is he forces the fullbacks. They have to work really hard, so you can get. So every 2 or 3 games, they have to have a rest. Otherwise, they'll just collapse. And so, yeah, that's why we saw. I mean, it's such a shame, really, because Trippier and Davis were fantastic whenever they play, really. And we're seeing Trippier now. God, the chances created in the World Cup. He's top for defenders, I understand. I think he's second amongst the players that are left in total.
Yeah, it's crazy. And a great penalty against Colombia as well.
Exactly. So he's a player. So that's going to play into people's hands as well. People are going to start looking at World Cup players as well and start thinking they're going to replicate that. Indeed, if he's on the pitch, he will. What about some underpriced players then? Because these are the ones that we really want to get. I'm going to mention one quickly.
Yeah, no, you go ahead. I want you to mention this guy. I'm very excited.
I'm going to mention him because just in case we run out of time and I don't get to it, then I'll be very upset. Lucas Fabianski. I've been going on about him for so long now. He's 4.5. I'm so pleased. I almost had a Fabianski street party. I was so happy. I thought he was going to be 5 million because I think he's going to be nailed on, and West Ham potentially could get a good defence together. They have the potential there. And he's 4.5. I said it's a gift. I think this is a gift one. I think FPL do this with 2 or 3 players. They go, what's he worth? And they've said Fabianski's worth 5 million, and they've said let's give them a little present. And so last season he was top for catches. So he catches the ball. He doesn't just parry it into a opposing striker. Top for catches last season. Top for penalty saves. Second for saves, and second for saves per minute as well. So yeah, absolutely. If you look at say Pope or Heaton, well, we're not sure he's going to play out of those two. Pickford, Dubravka at Newcastle as well. They're all 5 million. Dubravka at 5 million and Fabianski at 4.5. Thank you, FPL. That will do very nicely. Yeah, so Fabianski, first name on my team sheet. Who else?
Yeah, I mean, we've looked at Arsenal a little bit. I think that Mkhitaryan at 7 million, I really like the look of that. I mean, he hit the ground running last year with United, so there's no reason why he can't do it again this season. Did fairly well in the back end of last season. Got a little bit of a point to prove. We've talked about before on a couple of videos we've done. Quite fancy Arsenal. A little bit of an outside bet to be a good team to invest in next year. Lots of players who aren't going to be at the World Cup. 7 million for Mkhitaryan. I mean, that's fantastic. I mean, we'll have to see who starts and who gets involved in pre-season. But just having that price, that kind of price for that, because we know he's a quality player. We've seen him do it. It's hard to look away from that, really. Especially with Aubameyang's 11 million. So I mean, if you feel like you can't fit Aubameyang in, I mean, Mkhitaryan's basically is buddy, isn't he? So why not get him instead? 7 million.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be keenly watching Arsenal in pre-season. Lacazette is 9.5, I believe.
Yeah, that's right.
So there's a big difference there. So if we're looking at Lacazette starting as well as Aubameyang, and they're both starting together somehow, that is a big saving to get Lacazette, and I think he's been potentially kindly priced there. Aubameyang, I was expecting 11 million. Yeah, 4 assists, 10 goals in 12 starts. He's worth it, I think. It could arguably be underpriced if you look at that. But you're right about Arsenal. Mesut Ozil has come back, has finally been priced at what he is. He's 8.5. After seemed like forever, he was priced up in the 9s and 10s, and he's an 8.5 or 8 million. I think he's not underpriced. I think he's been priced.
Yeah, I think he's just right. I mean, when you look at we've started looking at our members' articles for analysing each team in the Premier League. We've had a look at Arsenal. When you look at the underlying numbers for Ozil, it's quite crazy how he didn't get as many assists as some of his teammates last year. Because the way that he plays and where he's got the ball, where he's distributing the ball, I think there's a lot of potential with him, and like you say, that is exactly the price you want Ozil at, because he's got loads of potential. But because it's just potential and it hasn't always translated into returns, you don't really want to be paying any more than 8.5.
Yeah, 9.5, no way. 8.5, I'll start considering him. Aaron Ramsey's a favourite of mine over the season, 7.5. I quite like that. 8 assists and 7 goals from 21 starts. That looks like good value. Fitness has always been a problem with him, and I guess that's why he has that price. But he has that. He's that great box-to-box player. He's got goals, assists, bonus points as well. I like the look of him as well. So once again, he's another I'll be monitoring there. What do you reckon about the Arsenal defence as well? We spoke about the Spurs defence being 6 million. Arsenal, they all look like 5.5 to me.
Yeah,
that looks good.
Yeah, I mean they haven't had a bump, and it makes sense why they haven't had a bump, because they weren't really reliable at the back last year. Monreal, the fact that he's still 5.5 is great. I mean, he obviously had lots of goals that, but it's the fact that that's not been offset. You know, he stayed at the same because his goals have outweighed the fact that they haven't kept many clean sheets. I mean, again, coming back to that point that we think that Arsenal could be a little bit better this year. You know, if Arsenal keep the clean sheets that we think they might in those fixtures after their first two, then 5.5s is worth looking at. I mean, obviously their goalkeepers are 5 million, so Lino's is 5 million. He's a good penalty saver. He's made a lot of saves in the Bundesliga. Again, keep an eye on him pre-season, because it'd be interesting to see how he fits in. But we'll have to keep an eye on goal threat too as well. I mean, if we find that we need to cover the Arsenal defence and it's a choice between 5 million for the goalkeeper or 5.5 for Monreal, who's basically playing as a bombing on fullback, then you go with Monreal. But the fact that the Arsenal goalkeepers are in the same sort of price bracket as your Newcastle goalkeepers, your Everton goalkeepers, rather than your Spurs and your Chelseas and your Man Cities, I mean, that's just worth being aware of, because I think there's potential for Arsenal this year.
Yeah, I mean, I guess they think there could be some rotation, or they're just not sure who's possibly the starting goalkeeper. But as you said, Leno's one. I've just, as you said, I just wrote it down because I hadn't had to so new out. I hadn't had a chance to check those types of players, but I immediately, he's on my list, my special list there, so I'll be looking at him as well. I noticed a few defenders as well, so I think I'd say a few I think are underpriced. So Tompkins at Palace at 4.5. Now most of the Palace defence are more than that, and Van Aanholt indeed is 5.5. But Tompkins was a sure starter. He seems to be popular amongst the management there. So once again, I'll be looking at Palace have great early fixtures. 4.5, that does look good, especially if you're looking at bench fodder or rotation. I think if he's starting, 4.5 is great. Charlie Daniels, 4.5, understandably so, but there's another to look at there. And Duncan Duffy as well. They didn't go up. I thought that was odd, considering their underlying stats and Brighton getting some good clean sheets as well. To Duncan Duffy at 4.5. So I look at Dubravka is at 5 million, and then Duncan Duffy at 4.5. I don't know. I've got my Brighton specs on. I'm thinking, why is this Newcastle goalie got a price hike, and this awesome centre back pairing with this goal threat that
they carry a bit of goal.
The goal threat of
which
Duncan Duffy
makes it better, doesn't it?
Yeah, will eventually come at 4.5. Looks good to me. Cedric at Southampton has gone down to 4.5 by the looks of it.
I mean that's looking nice as well. I mean,
so that's looking good. Southampton's fixtures, and Cedric, I had him towards the end of last season, and I wouldn't say he contributed to me doing well towards the end of last season. Well, I wouldn't say he was instrumental, but I would say he contributed. He had a role to play. He got me the odd assist and the odd clean sheet when I didn't expect it. So that was good for him. But yeah, anyone else who's kind of underpriced?
I'm not so sure about underpriced, because we have already mentioned that I don't think we should trust Everton's defence, but it's worth noticing. Obviously, you've got Baines and Coleman at the prices that we've already mentioned, and then Keane is 5 million. Everybody else in their defence is 4.5, which means that someone has got to start at centre back who's going to be 4.5. We don't know who it could be. I mean, it could be Jagielka, it could be Ashley Williams, it could be Martina, because obviously he can play anywhere in the back four. Again, it's another one we kind of need to sort of keep an eye on what they're doing pre-season, but their fixtures on paper aren't too bad. So it's just worth being aware. If we find that one of those is going to start more than the others, and they look like they're better at the back than they were, obviously under new management, then it's just worth knowing that they're in that bracket of 4.5s who could form part of a rotation. Underneath
Leno, I've just written 4.5 Everton defender. So you've thanks again. I've added that to the list because you're completely right there. I've just added that on because I'm going to be looking at that in pre-season. Definitely. Now you said that, because yeah, they have to play. And Everton have great early fixtures, and they have that potential with Super Pickford in goal there as well for clean sheets. So, yeah, 5.5, I'm not happy with playing that for an Everton defender, but 4.5, yeah, we'll be keeping an eye on that. Anyone else at all?
The only other one that I think is worth mentioning, but I'm worried that I might get some stick for mentioning, is Morata is now 9 million. Obviously had a terrible year last year. So there's every possibility that could happen again. There's every possibility he might leave. But again, he's a player we know has some quality, and he wouldn't be the first player in the Premier League to come here, have a poor season and then somehow work it out. 9 million if he's a regular source of goals. I mean, obviously he's got that competition with Giroud, and I mean, to be honest, on current form, if I'm the manager of Chelsea, I'd start Giroud because he's a more confident player. I like what he brings to the team. So I'm not saying that Morata's going to play, but if we find out that he does, 9 million in a team like Chelsea with some good fixtures, again, it's worth being aware of.
One of the big gossip rumours this season is that he could be on his way back to Italy, and Higuain could be over here at Chelsea. So once again, we'll be looking at his price if that happens. But yeah, Morata, I think I'm more concerned that he's actually going to not be here. But I think you're right. If he is going to be here, he definitely has potential. It was a great early season, actually. So
yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like, we know that he can do it. That's and a lot of it. I mean, I remember a few people who captained him when he scored the hat trick at Stoke, and that's great. I mean, if he can do that again at 9 million, bearing in mind that Firmino is now kind of pushed himself out of that bracket a bit. We've got if you want to play maybe with one premium striker, one mid range, and Morata scoring goals, why not go for it?
Here's another I found. At Liverpool, Lovren is 5 million.
Yes, that's right.
Now, if he's going to be starting, 5 million is great. The problem with that, and this is maybe a personal thing for me, is one of the players that I earmarked for my early team was Robertson. I thought he had a great end of season, and I think didn't really care what his price is. He's coming at 6 million, so he's not under or overpriced. He's just well priced. We've already seen pictures. He's already out training. He's ready to go. So I like about him. I like his bonus potential as well. So I was looking at last season's bonus point magnets. And if you look at minutes per baseline bonus, a baseline bonus, for those who don't know, you strip out goals, assists, and clean sheets for the bonus point system that FPL uses, and you're left with all the other stuff. And he's good at all the other stuff, and that's great news. So if you're in a kind of a 0-0, he's going to get some bonus points there. That means he's going to get extra bonus points as well. So he's making an assist, he'll get bonus points, but he'll be doing other things like tackling and passing and those types of things. So he does really well there, as does James Milner as well, but he might not play. So he was another I noticed there. But I mean, not so much underpriced, but what other bargains are there out there? And I think you're a good person to ask this, because the last time I asked you this question, we did our World Cup Scoutcast, and you said Inui from Japan, look out for him. He's quite good value. And indeed he was 4.5 in the World Cup, and he was incredible for there. So the bench has been placed very high here. So any other bargain gems?
I'm glad we've mentioned the Inui again. I mean, I don't want to stop mentioning it. I literally jumped off my seat when he scored that goal against Belgium. If we're looking in that bracket,
you put your money where your mouth is.
Yeah, well, absolutely, yeah. Well, I had no choice, I had to stick him in. He was just too good. In terms of that bracket, I think maybe that's where to look. I mean, obviously the price has only just come out, so I mean we've only had a brief look. One that I've noticed who's now a 4-5 midfielder is Jason Punchin, who, I mean, we're not sure. I mean, it's just one of those ones that just elicits that reaction, because
you may not. I have history. About 2 years ago, Jason Punchin more or less derailed my season.
Oh, really? I'm so sorry for mentioning that.
I got him in as a fourth midfielder. I elevated him, and I regretted it. And Mark and some of the others on the Scoutcast at the time didn't let that go, and quite rightly so.
Well, yeah.
But now you've said it. Oh.
I mean, it's 4-5. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, a lot with these players, we're not really sure they're going to play. And I think last season kind of showed he's kind of on the way out of Palace. So, I mean, for all we know, he might be at a championship club by the time the season starts. But when you see a player who we know plays in such an advanced role handed that sort of price tag, that's when you sort of, you kind of notice them really. Normally expect that to be someone who's like a holding midfielder or...
Because it was injury that stopped him from the last season.
Yeah, I think so,
rather than falling out. So if he's in favour, over once again, one for pre-season. But
yeah, definitely keep an eye on that.
Yeah, it's good call. The Inui of South London.
Yeah, exactly. Takashi's Castle.
Yeah. Any others?
I mean, yeah, it's difficult. Like I said, it's difficult. The only other one I've got is Theo Walcott, because I think 6'5" is lower than you would expect if he's performing. So he's not quite a gem, possibly, but he could be. Like in that bracket.
No, I incurred the wrath and the anger of many an Everton fan last season, because I was very unhappy with Theo Walcott and I just didn't think he was worth the money. But I looked at it. He was one of the first players I looked at, and I saw 6.5, and I was tempted. So if I'm tempted,
if even you're tempted,
if even I'm tempted by Theo Walcott 6.5, I think others should be as well. He may well be in my side.
Oh wow! I can't wait for game week 1 then.
Yes, so I'm looking forward to that 59th minute substitution after doing nothing. I mean, let's move on to kind of our early draft. No, we haven't had a chance to do an early draft. It's that early. But it's more of the kind of players that we're thinking of as well.
Yeah.
One of the things I've noticed, you may well have done at the beginning of every season, you want to get as many big hitters as you can in. And realistically, the way the pricing goes is it's very hard to get more than 3. And by heavy hitters, I mean a kind of 9 to 10 million plus. So you can get 4 9 to 10 million players. But if you're looking at, say, an 11 million, a 13 million, a 9 or 10 million, that's probably going to be your limit there. So, I mean, early on, your initial thoughts really, looking at the pricing and the fixtures, are there kind of 3 players, premium price players, that you think are going to get the nod for you?
I think at this stage, we know we've got to cover Liverpool. So I mean, we've talked about Salah already. If I wasn't covering Salah, because I mean, obviously, as we mentioned, it's entirely possible that we'll plan to not have Salah, and then come 5 minutes before deadline, we'll get him. But if I think a good plan could be to make 2 of your 3 premium players, Mane and Firmino, because then you're kind of just you could maybe basically be making up the fact that you don't have Salah, because you've covered 2/3 of that attack. I think outside of that, I think Aguero is probably going to be one I'm going to look at, because City's fixtures are good and he's already back from the World Cup. I mean, he's not going to be training just yet, but I would expect him to be back in training sooner than Jesus. So I think for that sort of first month, I think he'll have a good sort of run. And 11, I mean, some of us said the other day when we found out Aguero is 11 million, that arguably a bargain. If he's starting every week, and because we know what he's like, that's while he's still a premium player now, he's a little. I think he's a tad underpriced. So I think Aguero is going to be one. And then I think if I'm going to try and cover the fact that I don't have Salah, then if I get Firmino and Mane, then surely I'm going to get enough returns out of that to cover that Liverpool kind of attack without needing to fork out 13 million for Salah.
I mean, I've looked at City. I think you've got to get City. So they got Arsenal at first, then they got Huddersfield at home, Wolverhampton away, Newcastle at home, Fulham at home, Cardiff away. I mean, there could be some serious drubbings there. So I'm looking at Sané probably at 9.5. I think he's going to be good to go. I think he's going to have a point to prove to the German national side why wasn't he included, and Aguero as well. If I can afford him, I think he'll be good, because I think Jesus is going to be late back. I think Brazil are going to progress even further in the World Cup. What about Harry Kane? Does he interest you? I'm going to say, first off, he doesn't interest me at first.
No, I so want to have him in my team, because I've got a soft spot for Harry Kane. I'm like Mark. But I mean, of course, over the last couple of weeks, I mean, what Englishman doesn't have a soft spot for him? So, I do want to get him in. But I mean, part of the reason we've all got a soft spot for him is because he's doing very well at the World Cup. And I think World Cup, like no World Cup at all, his August record, and the fact that Spurs' kind of like stadium situation is a bit up in the air. They're going to be they might have a similar kind of feeling as they had last season, where they don't really feel at home in a new stadium, and he's a bit of a slow start. I mean, so that would put me off anyway. But then when you add in the fact that he's going to be potentially late back, it's really difficult to really make a case for him, especially when Liverpool and City have such good fixtures. I mean, he might be one that we maybe look at for our sort of like game week 7 or 8 wild card or something, like that's sort of like normally when he starts to become someone you desperately need to have. So yeah, initially I can't feel like including him, although I'm probably going to sign him on World Cup tonight. So I've still got love for him.
I think for me, I think I'm going to go for Eriksen if I'd go for a Spurs player. Newcastle away is quite good. I think it was Eriksen that scored in that exact same game week 1 fixture last season. And they got Fulham at home, there's points there. And then Manchester United away, no points there, afraid for Harry. And then Watford away, that could be good. And then Liverpool. So it's a real mixture the fixtures there, which puts me off slightly, and the August thing, and he hasn't had a break, and he'll have a bit of a holiday, so he'll be late back. Oh yeah, I think having, if any team, any fancy manager that has Kane and Salah in, I think it's going to really struggle to find some decent players elsewhere. So I think maximum you can have one of them.
Yeah, exactly.
Lukaku's a player I'm looking at if I think that he's going to start in game week 1, and that's because Manchester United have a good early run. It's only really Tottenham at home. It's a tricky one first off, and they were great last season. Lukaku got me off to a reasonable start last season because he did well, and he does pop up with the goals as he's been doing for Belgium in the World Cup as well. Is Lukaku one that appeals?
I think, I mean, he's in the conversation, but I think, I just think, with the World Cup and the fact that I feel more confident in Liverpool and Man City. Like, I prefer their fixtures and that they feel more trustworthy offensively. I mean, if we look at we looked at Man United's kind of underlying attacking numbers last season, they're quite. It was really underwhelming. That might change this year, but I mean, there's not really any factor that would tell me that there's a case to be made that it would change, because it's the same manager, largely the same players. So I mean, it's tricky. It's just the appeal of those other two teams kind of just pushes Lukaku to the side for me, and he's not quite as essential as he was last year.
Yeah, Arsenal as well. Now they've got a tricky couple of first fixtures, but Aubameyang is a player I really want. I think 11 million is fine considering his underlying stats last season and his end product as well. I just feel perhaps maybe I might go a bit fixture nut on this and go City at home, Chelsea away. I do like them as fixtures. I think those two teams are going to concede. But then it starts getting really nice from game week 3. West Ham at home, Cardiff, Newcastle and Everton in the next 4 after that. So what I might be doing is kind of have Aubameyang sitting on the shelf. I'll have another player, maybe Lukaku, and he's ready to be ditched for Aubameyang. He's a player I do rate early on, I think.
Yeah, that's potentially a good idea. When you look at it sort of in the short term for Man United and the short term for Arsenal. I mean, the only thing that's worth saying, I guess, and I'm sure you're aware, like if he does well in those 2 games, then he might be 11-3 by the time it gets to that run. So
well, that's it. So now I haven't got the price list exactly in front of me, but Lukaku's 11.5.
No, he's 11 flat. So
he's 11 flat. Yes, you're right. So that is
the same price. So I mean, you could do it, but you might just have to. I don't know. You might just have to move a bit of money around if he does do well in those games. But I mean, again, that's something to be sort of just trying to stay on top of in the season, I suppose.
I mean, my 3, I think, are going to be Sané. I just think he's good value. I'm going to go for Salah because I can pretend I'm not, but I'll get the fear factor. And
you won't be able to sleep at night.
I'm just preempting that I'm going. Also, it's far harder to get rid of Salah than it is to get him in. It's impossible to get a 13 million player in if you haven't got him and you've spent everything. You just got to do big surgery, possibly even wild card. So he's easier to get rid of. Yeah, and then true. I'm looking at probably Lukaku or Aubameyang, whichever I feel will actually play. And I think that's quite a good price point, 11 million for one of them, because I can always move down to maybe Arnautovic or Zaha and then free up lots of money there as well. So they're my 3. I don't know if you had a particular, real 3 that's
I'm not completely decided yet. I mean, I think you're right. Sané, I think you have to consider because of the factors you've mentioned. But yeah, I don't want to spend 13 million in my team, but I do want to have Liverpool cover. So I mean, but yeah, I think you've got the right idea. I mean, you're saying, look, I know I'm too scared to not have Salah, so I might as well just accept it now and just build my team around that. I mean, maybe that's what we've got to do. I mean, we can all pretend to deny it, but come game week 1, we're all going to have them, aren't we?
We should embrace our failures.
Exactly, yeah, exactly.
And I can pretend that I'm going to be the big man and go without it, but I'm not. What about in defences as well? So I because this is quite important, getting the bench fodder in to afford these ones. So I mean, I've looked at the fixtures. I think I want an Everton defender early on. I think I want a Palace defender early on. I think I want a Burnley defender early on. Chelsea defence looks good. If I'm going to spend big, I think Azpilicueta or Alonso there might get one premium one. But I think there's a lot of value in defence. So I think I might only get one top price defender. And then I noticed that Bournemouth and Southampton are very well priced for cheap defenders, good for rotation. And I think they've got a lot of potential there. I think they both underperformed, particularly in defence last season. So I think there's room to get better there. But yeah, was there any, I mean, elsewhere away from the premium side, were there any other players or teams you're looking at?
Well, I think you've made a good point in referencing that there's a lot of 4-5s. There's a lot of 4-5s who we think could be worth having. I mean, at the end of last season, when we were looking at our double game weeks, we were just picking up 4-3s and 4-4s. It was just like rubbish, weren't they? Like, I mean, the other day I was just looking at my team from last season. It was a couple of months since I'd looked at it, and I just went, "Wow, was it really my back five?" It's just terrible. But you know, now we've got some people in that kind of price range who actually have some potential, because a lot of them have a goal threat, as we said with the Brighton guys, and you know, Charlie Daniels is another one. Yeah, I think the ones you've mentioned would be the ones I'm looking at as well, like your Evertons, your Burnleys, and your Bournemouths as well, because they've got nice fixtures. I think that's the way to look at it. One person I'd like to mention, I guess he's kind of premium. I'm not so sure. It's Edison at Man City, just simply because obviously he ran De Gea very close for overall top scorer last year. For goalkeepers, he ran him very close for clean sheets. So there's every reason that he could do the same again this season. And the key with him compared to De Gea is obviously De Gea is 6 million, and there's cheaper Man United defenders. Edison's the other way around, really. Like, you look at what's available, and a lot of the sure starters at City in defence are more expensive. So Otamendi 6'5", Walker 6'5", Walker, another example, someone who might not come back. But basically, in the City defence, there's potential rotation there, whereas Edison, we just know he's going to play. And obviously, I mean, I'm not saying I'm going to go down the route of get a premium goalkeeper, because I think we're all fairly certain that we're all going to get Fabianski in another 4-5. But we know that a lot of people are kind of tempted by this idea of just get one guy in goal and just leave him there, because De Gea did it so well last year, and because Edison basically did kind of under the radar. Like, why not? Like, why not just stick Edison in 5-5, never have to worry about him? 2 tricky early fixtures, or sorry, 1 early tricky fixture, and then after that, there's every reason that you could keep clean sheets in all of those, and then you don't, and then you could spend 4 million on your other goalie, and just then that's a bit of extra money in it. So yeah, no, I think he's worth mentioning.
I think last season those that got De Gea in early and just stuck with him did well. He played all the time as well, so yeah, you can match him up with a 4 million goalie. I'm not keen on matching him up with a 4.5. I just think that's a bit too much. So I do quite like having a couple of 4.5, and I just do like that value and saves. And I think for me, just the way I've been playing the game, Fabianski just ticks all those boxes. I'm not even looking really at fixtures with him, because he showed last season with Swansea, the tougher the fixture, the better he scored. Yeah, against clean sheets, penalty saves, bonus points, saves as well. I think it was Tottenham had got an enormous score against Tottenham.
Yeah, he's so good. He's just consistency, isn't it? I mean, I think when we were looking at him, it's something like he's been in the top 3 for saves in the Premier League for 4 years in a row. Yeah. Obviously, he's at a different team now, but as we know, West Ham conceded more shots, I think, on goal than most teams in the league. So there's every reason he can do that again this year. West Ham, I'm going to argue, are better than Swansea. You know, that was a poor season, West Ham, but they were still miles better than Swansea. And I think that's a good point there. I mean, I think we pretty much wrapped it up now in terms of our initial thoughts. The plan is that we're going to be trying to get together. We're doing some testing for some new ways of doing these videos, so we're hopeful to get that launched very soon, and then we're going to get much more videos out. So we're going to be looking in detail all over the summer, all sorts of things about pre-season, best strikers, best goalkeepers as well, best defenders, etc. And then obviously once the season gets underway, we'll be back with regular videos looking about how we're doing, how badly we're all doing, or perhaps hopefully how amazing we're all doing, which has never happened to me early on, so you never know. But for now, thanks for watching. We're going to be back throughout the summer, as I said, but for now it's goodbye from me, and a goodbye from me.
Goodbye all.